There is no one else like you.
We have received that spirit of adoption whereby we cry, Abba, Father. For years I never really understood exactly what that meant, and I researched it a little bit. The word Abba is an interesting word. Sort of like daddy. It's kind of a slang word. It's not a formal word like father or grandfather, but it's an endearing term. It's what a little boy or a little girl would say when they stump their toe. If you ever stumped your toe, something a little, when they fell down and they couldn't get back up. And what it means is to say Abba is to lift our hands and say, pick me up, Daddy. I don't know if you've been knocked down, but we've received the spirit of adoption whereby we can say, pick me up, Dad. I've fallen and I can't get up, and I need you to pick me up. Is there a hand that would be lifted to him this morning? Come on, if you got a hand to lift, why don't you lift it to him and say, Abba, Father, I need you today, Lord. I need you to help me. I need you to hold me. I need you. I have fallen and I can't get up, and I need you to pick me up. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. Thank the Lord. It is hard to preach after Joan sings. It's easy to preach before he sings because he makes you look good, but he makes you look bad when he sings before. But I want to talk to you a little bit and began about a 4-week process of talking about the greatest story that's ever been told. The amazing thing about this story is it's true. Genesis chapter 4, verse number 13. And Cain said to the Lord, does anybody know what Cain had just done? He had just killed his brother. And the Lord punished Cain for what he had done. And after the Lord had decreed his punishment, Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Surely you have driven me out this day from the face of the ground. I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. And it will happen that anyone who finds me, they know what I did. They're going to kill me. And the Lord said to him, therefore, whoever kills Cain, I'll kill him 7 times. Vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark on Cain, lest anyone finding him should kill him. Verse 16. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. If you could help me a little bit, say amen. God bless you. You may be seated. People are hungry. We have made mistakes, and we need to be redeemed. In our small groups, they're teaching from a book that I gave them called The Blessed Life, which is one of the most powerful books that I've ever read or preached out of. But in that book, it says that the firstborn has to be redeemed. If it's not redeemed, you got to break its neck. I'm the firstborn son in my family. My dad said he wished he'd have known that neck-breaking part a long time ago. But what I'm hungry for, I tried to define my hunger and our hunger. And what I'm hungry for and what you're hungry for is everybody wants a second chance. We all want to be redeemed. We all want to be the prodigal that comes back home and the fatted calf is killed. We all want that, don't we? No one's perfect, and we're hungry. We long to make things right, don't we? I pray today that everyone finds an opportunity, a moment. Because if you don't find a moment for redemption, life gets pretty miserable pretty quick. But I read the end of a story of two brothers. The boys' names were Cain and Abel. The amazing thing about these two boys is they were the first two ever born. Most likely they were twin brothers born out of a union between Adam and Eve. They were the first natural born. You see, Adam was born of God. Eve was born of the man. But Cain and Abel were the first two births that happened the way all the ones since sin except for Jesus have happened. Cain and Abel grew up. They were their mother's pride and joy. But what happened is amazing. The first two children, the first two baby boys, chubby-fisted baby boys that ever lived, one of them murdered. The innocent died and the guilty survived. And it becomes an amazing story of mercy. Abel had a sacrifice, and his sacrifice was accepted. Cain brought his sacrifice, and his sacrifice was not accepted. The reason that Abel's sacrifice was accepted is because it was his first fruit offering. It was of the very firstborn of his flock. People say, well, it was because there wasn't any blood in that sacrifice. It was a bloodless sacrifice. That's not it at all. Cain's sacrifice was not accepted because it came in the process of time. When he got good and ready, when he had something left over, he brought his offering to the Lord. Abel's offering was accepted because it was a first fruits offering. Cain's was not accepted because he just brought it when he got good and ready. But while Abel's sacrifice was burning on the altar, Cain, the firstborn son, his mother was so proud. What did his mother say when Cain was born? She said, I have received a man-child from the Lord. And that don't sound like much to you unless you go back and read the curse. And the curse said, the seed of the woman is going to bruise the head of the serpent. And she thought, maybe this is the one. He's the one. He's going to bruise the head of the serpent. He's going to take us back to the Garden of Eden. Eve still had wonderful memories from a place called Eden, a place of paradise that she lived in. She had those memories. And Cain, he's a man-child. He's going to take us back there. She thought he's the Redeemer. He's the Savior. He's the one that's going to bruise the serpent. But instead of crushing the serpent, he crushed his brother. Jealousy blinded his judgment, and somebody say amen. What happened next is an amazing story. And we all do it, but he tried to hide what he did. He tried to bury his brother so he could blame someone else for what happened. And the Lord came and said, hey, where's your brother Abel? And Cain said, what? Am I my brother's keeper? I don't tell him what to do. I don't keep up with him. He tried to hide it, but he couldn't. And on that day, Adam and Eve lost both boys. Abel was slain, and Cain was exiled. And the curse was a terrible thing. That's what sin does. It curses us all. It marks us all for destruction. The problem with Cain is he wasn't the first sinner. Have you heard the old saying, boys will be boys? Unfortunately, that's true. problem with it is, if it's your firstborn son, you think he's perfect. Until he shoots all the windows out of the neighbor's car with his BB gun. Which I did, by the way, just so you know. Actually, Danny did it. I was just there telling him what to do. It wasn't a Cain problem. It was an Adam and Eve problem. The reason Cain was a sinner is because his mama and his daddy were sinners. He wasn't the first sinner. His parents lived in paradise and they sinned before him. So from birth, he was marked as a sinner. And the greatest testimony that you can ever give about yourself or anyone else that you know is that you or they are a sinner saved by the grace of God. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Just like Cain, we have all made mistakes. And what we're hungry for, because we are all, the writer of Galatians says, we are all under sin. What we're hungry for is a way to get out from under it. Instead of sin pushing us down, we're looking for a way that we can push sin down and out of our life. Adam sinned and he passed it on. He passed it to Cain, he passed it to Abel, he passed it to you, and he passed it to me. And the writer of James in chapter 2 and verse number 10, for whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. I'm going to talk about the law in just a second. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. Now, if you do not commit adultery, but you murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. Now, we're all guilty because Adam sinned. Stay with me just for a second. I'm gonna get somewhere. The Hebrews believed the whole law to be the Torah. The Torah was the 613 laws written in the Old Testament. Those 613 laws, there were 248 thou shalt nots and 365 thou shalts. They believed there was a thou shalt for every day of the year, and there thou shalt not. For they believed there were 248 bones in the body. They believed there was a thou shalt not for every bone in the body. And those 613 commandments in the Old Testament, they called the law. And you are to keep every one of those 613 commandments. And if you break one of them, you've broken it all. Now, I don't have the time. I wish I did have the time. I have a list in my office of all 613 of those laws. Everybody in here would be asleep if I read them. But let me make you a promise. You've broken one of them. I've broken about 612. You could just read the 10 Commandments, and you might read the first one and say, well, that's, yeah. But by the time you got down to 3 or 4, you'd be saying, oh, no. And to be guilty of one is to be guilty of them all, because we inherited Adam's failure. Romans chapter 5 and 12 says it best. I'm getting somewhere, and you got to stay with me. I know you're tired, and you got up an hour early, and stay with me. Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, that one man was Adam, and death reigned through sin, and thus death spread to all. How come we got to die? Because Adam did. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, Romans 7 and 18 said, nothing good dwells. For to will, I want to do good, but how? I don't know. Leave that there. I know that in me, that is in my flesh, nothing good dwells. That's a repentant heart right there. If you think you're pretty good, you're really wasting your time coming to church today. You think you kind of got it figured out? He said, the greatest preacher that ever lived, he said, in my flesh, there's nothing good in me. I want to do good. For the will is present. I have this desire in my heart, my mind to do good, but when it comes down to performing it, when it comes down to actually doing it, I can't do it. What's he saying? He said, I've broken a few of those 613. I'm guilty of the whole law. I better find me some grace somewhere. I've seen tracks on the arm of a heroin addict. I've seen their veins so blown up. I have seen with my own eyes in a stall of a men's bathroom at a car dealership. His veins were so blown up, I've seen an addict shoot heroin between his toes. I've seen an alcoholic just tremor and shake, just if I could just get a drink. You think it's okay, but it's not okay. I've seen memories that haunt people to the point they're so depressed that they're near death. Sin. That's sin. It's the mark of sin. It's the mark of destruction. It's the mark of misery. It's the mark of death. Sin marks you for death. And I read a lot about it in the last couple of days. Cain had a mark on him, but it was not the mark of death. He said, this curse is more than I can bear. He said, somebody sees me, they're going to kill me. And God said, I'm going to put a mark on you. And that's not a negative mark. I've heard it preached about the mark of Cain. It's just a bunch of garbage. The mark of Cain was a life-saving mark. I don't know what you put on Cain, but I want you to put it on me, because he said, if I put this mark on you and anybody touches you, I'll do 7 times as bad to them. Woo. Because we've all committed Cain's sin. If you broke one of them, you're guilty of all of them. Are you with me? Cain sinned, and God gave him his penalty for his sin. He said, you're going to be a vagabond and a wanderer. You're going to have to, you're going to just wander around, and no one's going to know where you're at, and you're going to be lost all the time. And he said, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Everyone I meet will try to kill me. And then God did something absolutely amazing. He put a mark on Cain. I read all about it. Some theologians say it was a change in his appearance. Some say it was a mark in his forehead. Some people said it was a sign of the cross. Some people say God wrote his name on him. Somebody said it was leprosy. They're all wrong. God put a mark on Cain and said, don't you touch him, because I love him. He's made mistakes. He killed his brother, but I'm not going to let you kill him. Come on, somebody. You've made mistakes, but God's not going to let somebody do to you what you've done to somebody. That's mercy. God didn't mark Cain to die. He marked him to live. God gave him a second chance. He was a man that was marked for redemption. Some preachers say, and I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. There's a whole movement, and I've dealt with it a lot, that there are just 2 kinds of people. There are 2 races. There are the children of Cain and the children of Seth. And that the children of Cain have no chance at redemption. They say that the wife of one of Noah's sons, her name was, I think of her name, God help me, I didn't write it down. But that the wife of one of Noah's 3 sons was a descendant of Cain, which is not true, because the Bible says it isn't true. So Noah was perfect in his generations, and those that were on the ark were perfect. Their bloodlines were clear. But it's a Bible study for another day. But he said, but there are a lot of theologians say your destiny is decided in the womb, whether you're a descendant of Cain or whether you're a descendant of Seth. No. God will save anyone. If Jesus only came to save the good people, this room would be empty today. Only, everybody say only. There's only one born godly, and that was Jesus. When you've just been born once, you're a sinner. But once you've been born twice, or born again of the water and the Spirit, then and you can be a sinner saved by grace. God will save anyone, and somebody say amen. That's what the resurrection is all about. God will save anybody. You don't have to know his name and he'll save you. You cry, I don't know who you are. I don't know what your name is. No one's ever told me about you, but I need you. And you know what? He's going to come. There will be a way. No matter how dark it seems and no matter how lonely you feel, when you cry out to him, he's going to find you where you are. Be careful when you say God can't do anything, because he can do anything. The enemy tries to get you to question, what did Cain say? My iniquity is too great. I've gone too far. I've hurt too many. I've disappointed too many. Too much, too far, too little, too late, all the time. Too much, too far, too little, too late, too much, too far. We hear it ringing in our ears all the time. No, you haven't. You haven't gone too far. You haven't done too much. It is not too late. He loves you. He marked Cain not to be destroyed, but to be saved. A man that had just killed his brother, and God still loved him. And I believe that in Mark. Let me just give you this little Whitley chapter 1. First of all, I got to talk about it just a second. I'm almost finished. But what that mark was for was when the blood started flowing down Calvary and onto the ground. Those that had been marked for redemption, I believe that blood flowed all the way back, and it quickened the spirit of Cain. It would have quickened the spirit of Cain if Cain would have listened. My question is, what are you going to do about Calvary? When you have an opportunity for the past to be gone forever, when you've been marked like Cain was to be saved and not killed, when you have an opportunity, the scripture says, old things pass away and behold, all things are become new. What are you going to do? You're going to ignore it? Are you going to grab it, accept it, hold on to it? Can't grab it, Cain. That mark on you is proof of God's mercy. The days are evil, Cain. Redeem the time because it slips by so fast. Take advantage of the moment. Don't allow another day to pass without experiencing the mercy of God. But somehow Cain did not fully understand. He understood, but he didn't grasp it. And the Bible said he went out from the presence of God and he stayed out. And he lived in a place called the land of Nod. I looked up that word and it just means he just lived in a wandering place. His whole life, he was just wandering. He was lost his whole life. If you read the genealogies of Cain, which I did this morning, he taught his kids to work and not to worship. I want to say this, and I know this goes against the grain in America in 2016 or whatever year it is, I forget. Your children's relationship with God is a lot more important than their education. I'm not saying education is not important, but they can have a PhD in everything, and if they don't know God, it's a perfect waste of time. What's a shame is some of us have been saved, marked to be redeemed, but we've refused. Instead, we've lived in the land of Nod. We've lived in damnation. I brought all that to say this. I'm finished. I didn't do a very good job, but maybe I can bring it all together now. Me and my brother Danny, when we were kids, we were entrepreneurs. We'd do anything to make $1. We used to push the lawnmower down the street and knock on doors and say, hey, your grass needs mowed, $5 and we'll mow it. We mowed a lot of grass that way. None of it very good. Never was worth $5. I had this formula, Danny mowed, I collected. But one thing we did, and you can't do it anymore, but We used to collect Coke bottles. Anybody ever do that? Anybody remember that? How many of you in here don't remember collecting Coke bottles? Yeah, you could just, I can't believe people threw them out. We would walk down the road for hours and hours. And we'd look in the ditch, and people would throw Coke bottles in the ditch. And me and my brother would collect those Coke bottles. You know why we collected them? Because they were marked for redemption. Because even though it had been thrown in the ditch, and even though they were full of mud and grime, and even though they didn't look like much, they were still worth something. And we'd take those bottles home, and we'd wash them out, and we'd clean them up, and they'd say 5 cents or 10. We love those 10-cent ones. And we'd take those to the store, and she never asked where they were, where they had been, or where we found them. What kind of grime they had been in, what kind of trouble they had been in. She just paid us for them because they were still worth something, no matter where they had been. And I learned something. If something is redeemable, don't throw it away. Hold on to it. It has value. Your life is like a Coke bottle. No matter what you've done, it has been bought with a price. The precious blood of Calvary has marked it. And he arose on resurrection morning to redeem you, to purchase you back forever. Abel died and Cain lived. The innocent died and the guilty went free. Does that ring a bell? Jesus hung on Calvary naked between heaven and earth. And he was innocent. And everyone in this room has broken one of those 613 laws. But he didn't. The innocent died, so the guilty, so we can live. We've been marked. Don't you touch him. I want to redeem him. I want to save him. It's my sin that took him to the cross. You were guilty, I was guilty, and he died so that I could go free. He was wounded. Can I change that wording a little bit and not do damage to the text? He was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities, the chastisement. Anybody remember that? Isaiah 53. Let me change it. He was marked for my transgressions. The mark he took was the mark of death so that we could have the mark of redemption. He was marked with my sin so I could be marked with his innocence. Are you with me? Let's stand together. I've dug in the mud. I've wrestled my brother. I'd see one down the road in the ditch, and I'd take off running because I wanted to be the first one there to get it. And when I got there, it didn't matter what it looked like. It was still valuable. And that was exciting to me. We kept these little wooden crates in the carport. Remember those wooden crates? Put a bottle in each one of those squares. Fill that thing up, and we'd take it to the store. She'd pay us for it. You know what Jesus is doing today? He's filling up those crates. He wants to take us back where we came from. We came from a place called Eden. We came from a place called paradise. We came from a place called peace. And I don't know if you've looked around lately, but there's not a whole lot of peace going on. There's a little bit of turmoil going on in this world. when the leaders of our country have to be guarded and defended 24/7, when I go into a restaurant and I feel like I have to have a handgun in my pocket to eat. You don't know it. Some of you don't know it, but just the week before last, another pastor shot while he was preaching. But let me tell you, if you came here to shoot me today, there's several men in here that are armed that are going to shoot back, so don't. Please don't. We live in a violent world. We live in a violent world. When people bring guns to church. I need some help. I need help. I've done my best to figure it out, and my best is terrible. I've done my best to do my best, and my best is terrible. And I don't want to make you mad, but you need help too, honey. You've done your best, and your best is filthy rags, the Bible says. Our righteousness, our very best, is just filthiness. But he put a mark on us. That the blood of Calvary is flowing all the way from 2,000 years ago. And if you'll just open your heart to him, he'll redeem you right now. He'll purchase you with the precious blood of Calvary. Would you bow your head with me? If something is redeemable, don't throw it away. Don't throw your life away no matter what you've done, because you've got a mark on you. He wants to save you. It's not too much. It's not too far. It's not too late. He wants to save you. Would you let him do that today? Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
The blood that Jesus shed for me, way back on Calvary. Oh, the blood that gives me strength from day to day. It will never lose its power. The blood that Jesus shed for me, way back on Calvary. Oh, the blood that gives me strength from day to day. It will never lose its power. Oh, it reaches.
Would you sing
to
it?
the highest mountain, and it flows to the lowest valley. The blood that gives me strength from day to day, it will never lose its power.
Every voice, everybody singing.
It reaches to the highest from day to day. It will never lose its power.
You can go out and be lost and wander, or you can find satisfaction. You can fulfill your calling, or you can let your past mistakes and your past failures drive you into the land of Nod, where you just wander around. And you draw your last breath, and the world was no better because you existed. Or you can accept the redeeming blood of Jesus, and you can make your life count. It's really your choice. He's already done the work. He's already accomplished the task. All you have to do is participate in it. You have to repent of the things that are not pleasing, of those laws that you've broken. Buried with him in baptism, and he'll fill you with his Spirit. And the Bible calls it newness of life. You can walk in newness. Old things passed away. Behold, all things are become new. Marvel not that I say unto you, you must be born again. There's an opportunity for us to live above it. We live in a land of wars and rumors of wars, and we have veterans in the room today that have fought to defend what we believe in. But the amazing thing is the guys on the other side are fighting just as hard to defend what they believe in. We live in a mixed up world. Let's just let the blood of Jesus flow to where we are. Instead of heroin tracks in our arm, let's have that redemption mark. Amen. Put that 10 cents on me. Amen. And when you got that mark on you, I will promise you, you'd have had to live a long way from our house to be a Coke bottle and be in the ditch somewhere, because you were a Coke bottle in the ditch, we found you. Well, I was a Coke bottle in the ditch, and I was full of mud and grime, but he found me. I'm so thankful for that. Lord, we love you today. You've been good to us. Your Spirit is rich and real. Bless your people today. Flood their hearts with your presence. Don't let us feel lost today. When you died to save us, take away that lost feeling. Draw us to that cross. Draw us to redemption. To draw us to your wounded hands and feet, your pierced side. Draw us to the cross of Calvary. Draw us to an empty tomb. Draw us to an upper room. A personal experience that sets us free from the past. In Jesus' name. Somebody said in Jesus' name. God bless you. Thank you for being here today. We'll see you on Wednesday night.
To the highest